petitioners, and we can now move on.
36 presentata da Roberto Albanese, un cittadino italiano.
To the next ones, the crisis in the solar energy sector in Italy. I'll give the floor to the petitioner for 5 minutes.
In primo luogo i ringraziamenti.
First of all, thanks to the European Parliament and the Petitions Committee for this important opportunity for dialogue. And I think that's a very good thing for Europe to be a place for dialogue between citizens and institutions. Now, it's very interesting today that you should have been speaking on another aspect of the energy picture. We have been talking about businesses and consumers, and now there is another sector which is workers in the photovoltaic cell sector. And unfortunately, this is a sector which is in a major crisis in our country, and this gives added urgency to our petition, because Europe cannot simply be words. If you listen to Council today, quite rightly is going to be discussing the energy and climate package, the European Council. However, citizens, they look at what's said, and then they look at their own region and the green economy, realising that there are CO2 reduction targets intended to boost renewables. And people make, if they see the green economy losing jobs, then ordinary people see a major contradiction and a major discrepancy between words and acts. And this is, I think, something which causes a disconnect among citizens, and they're going to send out their signs, indications of their disgruntlement with their elected representatives and to the institutions. And this is the purpose of this petition. We wanted to send out an appeal to the appropriate place here in the Parliament, which is the right place for this subject such as this to be discussed. This goes back to 2012. This is the north of Italy, northern Italy, where the crisis really hit with the closure of companies, with layoffs and increased unemployment starting 2 years ago. And this was for a variety of different reasons. There were 2 companies in particular with a workforce of more than 200 in Monte Brianzi, near to Milan, and they were seeking to relocate in Serbia in order to get a big order for a photovoltaic park in Serbia, and in consequence they did not need the workforce from Lombardy. It so happens that the project did not prosper, it did not materialise. But other factors began to come into play, as suggested by the Spanish representative earlier on, difficulties with the competition and emerging countries such as China, and the 200 workers, 2 years down the track, are now having to survive on 700 or 800 euros a month. They can't pay their gas or electricity bills. Of course, this is the winter is now behind us, but they were having great difficulties making ends meet because of having been made unemployed. Now, I am talking about this particular part of Italy, and this may seem specific to that region, but growing unemployment has been a problem. 8,000 jobs have been lost in the sector over the period, and that's about half of the total workforce in the photovoltaic sector in Italy. And this is basically half. The turnover has been halved, at a time of social and business difficulties of this kind, how is it possible simply to be even more ambitious in the targets that we're setting ourselves when it comes to addressing climate change? There are dozens of companies which have been closing down, and these are small and medium-sized businesses. They're small and they're very fragile, and yet they represent a tremendous heritage which is being lost. The north of Italy, northern Italy, is famous for its small businesses, for the vitality of its small businesses, not in the big industries like steel, but the small ones which are competitive. If they are in crisis, then we're beginning to lose a very important part of our fabric. Spanish colleagues were saying earlier on that the crisis is a European one in the photovoltaic, in the PV sector, in the photovoltaic sector. Listening to the Commission, I think that we also got a sense of the scale of the crisis there. We, of course, may be biased, but I think looking further afield, you can see that there's a problem Europe-wide, and that's why we're looking to Europe to come up with an EU-wide answer. Today, we're putting the focus on northern Italy, on the north of Italy, and this is, of course, the heartlands of Italian industry. We, as I say, have gone down from 1,400 workers affected by the crisis, 500 in the province of Monte Brianza in Lombardy, 700 in the Veneto region, and 200 in the province of Bolzano. So this is the map, the big red circle, that's the north. Then you have also the centre and the west. And there are whole areas in Italy where the PV no longer exists. And that gives you the scale of the problem if we want to have a future for this sector, which is very knowledge-driven and which is very business-driven, where all that set of skills and competences and the ethic which goes with that are being lost. And that is central to the green economy. Now, as I say, one ray of hope is that our petition has had the support of workers, of green activists, and of mayors, local representatives. And you can see from the press play surrounding this that people are saying the PV photovoltaic can come back, but you'll understand that we are disappointed because of the slowness, the tardiness of response regionally and national government as well. And this is why we are coming to Europe to say, please help us take on this task. We read through the report from the Commission very attentively. Some of that was very promising. Things it said about dumping by the Chinese. It seems that things are being done to counter that. But we think that the Commission is being over-sanguine, over-optimistic, and I think it's got to get a bit more practical. And then secondly, there is the social crisis with growing unemployment. And we looked for some help on that side in the Commission's report as well, because there are instruments available. But it means getting the regional government, getting the national government to avail themselves of there is the European Globalisation Adjustment Fund, which could be used, which is there. And I must say that thank you very much to members of the Parliament who have enabled the EGAF, the Globalisation Adjustment Fund, to continue into the next Parliament, so that there is continuity. There are examples around the place. If you look at Germany, they did something for the company First Solar, and what they did was they put up a project which qualified for the Globalisation Adjustment Fund. That fund has to do with manpower resources, but it also has an industry policy side to it, which is of relevance nationally and at the EU level. And as I say, this is renewable energy, and I believe that's an instrument which could help to prevent the disappearance of this important cluster of skills, which is part and parcel of our industrial heritage. Surely the strength of Europe has to be to ensure that the energy objectives, the employment objectives can be put close to where people are. That's where people are looking to get. And we need the governments of Lombardy and of Italy to put its focus on Lombardy, on Veneto, on Trento, Alto Adige, because the photovoltaic has tremendous potential for the future. And I hope that our demands will be listened to. Thank you very much. Ayato Besedurle for the Commission.
Signore Albanese, I'll revert to English for my response. I can reassure you that the European Commission is concerned whenever a company or an industrial sector undergoes severe times, and more rightly so when this is a sector that is intensive in knowledge, intensive in skills, in research and development, and environmentally friendly. The green economy, the green industry in Europe currently accounts for 1/3 of the 1,000 billion euros that are traded worldwide, and provides 3 million employments, and has been identified as one of those sectors for which industrial policy should pay special attention. Earlier this year, in January 2014, the European Commission adopted, together with the new energy and climate package, an industrial policy communication that calls for a renaissance of industrial activity in Europe. The Commission is putting all its forces to make European industry competitive and to make Europe an attractive place for industrial investments. But it's not only words that the Commission is doing. The Commission is also allocating significant financial resources in the new multi-annual financial framework for competitiveness of industries throughout COSME program, competitiveness of SMEs, Horizon 2020, and the European Structural Investment Funds, which altogether would reach nearly 200 billion euros available for industries, regions, and agglomerations of regions to undertake industrial projects. We believe that there's a key role for regions to play in this process. Individual regions, but also clusters of regions throughout Europe, through the principle of smart specialization. Regions can identify those sectors where they have competitive advantages and use these funds to improve the competitiveness of their industry. For the case of photovoltaic, as far as we are aware, 2 regions have chosen photovoltaics as one of the selected areas of specialization, one in northern Germany and one in Slovakia. We are not aware of any Italian region that has chosen photovoltaics as one of their key areas for industrial activity. In this sense, the Commission is open to collaborating with Italian regions that would want to identify PV as one of the sectors of potential industrial growth, and also, although outside the realm of the competences of DG Enterprise, we also believe that using the European Fund for Globalization in this case could be welcomed. However, DG Employment would be in a better position to respond to the concerns of the petitioner. Regarding trade measures, I would give the word to my colleagues from DG Trade to give an update on the anti-dumping and anti-subsidy measures with China.
Harald Schmid.
Okay. Okay. As regards the situation of imports of solar panels from China, thank you very much for acknowledging that there has already been some action taken by the European Commission. I would like to wrap this up, what happened in the last 9 months. In summer 2013, we imposed provisional anti-dumping measures against imports of solar panels from China, which have been definitively confirmed by the Council in December 2013. At the same time, Council also confirmed definitive anti-subsidy measures against imports from China. These imports are to a certain extent, or to a large extent, subject to an undertaking, and imports outside the undertaking are subject to a duty that averages at 47%. And we have done what we can do under the provisions that are laid down in the WTO anti-dumping agreement and our own basic anti-dumping regulation.
Thank you, Mr. Jahr. After Mr. Bossin.
Vielen Dank. Also, wo soll man jetzt anfangen?
Thank you very much. One doesn't really know where to start because it covers the same ground as the previous petition, and it reminds us of the tremendous responsibilities which fall to parliamentarians. If you're trying to boost innovative, new investment, then you've got to keep your eye on the ball and see how this new infant prospers or not. In Germany, for example, we've been through the whole story. It starts up with a tremendous euphoria, and which says, for example, that solar power is too cheap to meter. In other words, the sun doesn't ask for any money, and that's in the first flush of these new forward-looking sectors. Things start, and then of course it builds up, and then of course at some stage the taxpayer is going to be asked to contribute. That's usually what happens. And then once PV energy is being generated with subsidies, the price paid for it can be 5 times more than energy generated by other means. So this is really an appeal to politicians themselves, which is to, if you have been instrumental in this new sector being opened up, look after it as it develops and over a period of time. Now, should we, of course, globalization, China has been mentioned because of its photovoltaic industry, and they're not always very fair dues because they subsidize, the Chinese subsidize their photovoltaic panels, solar panels, and it's very difficult for others to compete with that. But now, I don't think we can answer some of the questions. Can we use the Globalization Adjustment Fund? I don't know, Germany certainly has availed itself of that instrument, but in Germany there's a big restructuring need in the photovoltaic industry. But you're quite right in the general point, which is that we stand to lose out completely in Europe because there's a lot of, this is skill driven, it's energy, it's knowledge intensive, it's innovative as well. And I think that we can certainly pass on this message to the specialised committees here in the House, and that's a suggestion I would make. Now, there's a REGI dimension to this as well. And I think, as you said, as the petitioner said, it's really for Lombardy, for the regions concerned, to put up a case, to build a case for this well, and it will require the region's support, I think, as well.
Few remarks only. It's true that the developments in the photovoltaic sector shows ups and downs, which are not necessarily related to the pressure exercised by China, not only. One important point, and I'm very much in line with the opinion expressed by my distinguished colleague, Mr. Peter Jahr, we have to keep in mind that the pressure on the final price, the market price of energy in Europe, it's only increasing in the recent years, and we have to tackle, in one hand, the need for improving the energy mix and the 2020 energy targets, and also 2030, 2050, but in the same time to keep in mind that there is no industrial competitiveness without competitive energy prices. Let's forget about illusions or dreams. We have to tackle, if for Germany the problem is becoming more and more important, it's equally important for a country as Romania, which shows a better situation, which is much above the 2020 targets today in terms of the energy mix. The place and the role of renewables is very high, but still the pressure on the market price for energy, it's accused and it's heavily perceived by the few still remaining alive industrial capacities like aluminium plant or car industry or steel industry. We have to keep in mind that there is a need for measures to be taken looking to all the pieces of the puzzle, not to one single piece, because when looking to one single piece of the puzzle, we shall lose further our industrial capacities. We are complaining about China, it's true, but do not forget that China is only using the name of the God, profit. This is the name of the God. We invented, we Europeans, we Westerners. The name of the God, it's profit, and they are only using each and every opportunity. And on the solar panel dispute with China, I will remind to the European Commission 2 points. Number one, the decision taken by the Commission was not necessarily discussed with the member states, knowing very well that Germany was opposing to the measures taken, and not only 18 member states out of 28, practically 27 at that moment, were opposing to the idea of starting the dispute with China on the solar panel, which do impact the accessibility of the local projects to get access to cheaper solar panels. This is another coin, another face of the coin, which shall have in mind. And the second, the fact that we can speak a lot about reindustrialization in general. Our papers are very nice, but in practice there is a process of dramatic deindustrialization, and one of the key elements is the delocation. And when it's about the delocation, again, it's better not to look to China. China is only attracting our investments and our industrial capacities because the labor market's still a bit much cheaper, but it's growing today, that it is Europe, and it's about the largest market in terms of customers, and we know very well the numbers do matter in terms of competitiveness, profit, and so on and so forth. If we shall not look to all elements, having in mind the knowledge, the expertise, the know-how which still exists in Europe, with the market dimension and the competitiveness, those projects will only be experimental ones, and then we shall complain that we are losing ground on competitiveness, on skills and professionalism and scientific capabilities in our global dispute. This is when looking only, and I will stop. I will remind you that the collateral victim of the solar panel dispute with China was the French one, the Spanish one, and the Italian as well. The three countries were paying for the solar dispute. Whatever we like it or not, this is a fact of life. This is why we have to design strategies also when it's about addressing the global competition, because solar panels is only a piece of the puzzle and not the whole puzzle. And this should not be forgotten. Thank you.
Grazie, un minuto.
Thank you. And 1 minute to the petitioner for a response. Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, and thanks for the discussion, the debate, which has been positive. Just 2 points. First of all, simply to say that in the industry we have basically a German monopoly in photovoltaic, with a small quota in Spain and some in Italy. And I think that you can't really have an industry which is a monopoly of that kind. The regions have got to be able at least to maintain the industrial heritage of skills, quite apart from being able to turn this into a policy objective and really putting an effort into it. Now, of course, Germany-China has been a kind of alliance, and that again is something you've got to bear in mind. Now, on the final question of the European Global Adjustment Fund, the EU rules state that that fund can be used basically between 4 and 9 months after the letter of redundancy of unemployment. So if the application goes into the Commission, basically there are some times when the timing element makes it basically impossible to use. This goes back in time a little bit, and my request is for this to be seen as part of the overall problem, the overall crisis in the photovoltaic sector, which against the backdrop of globalisation affecting Bolzano, Alto Adige, affecting Veneto, affecting Lombardy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Petitioner, thanks also to members and the Commission representative. I think it's clear that we do have a competence there and can lend our support to the petitioner and take that case to the European institutions. We will need to keep up the démarches with the national and regional authorities in the light of the circumstances which have been brought to our attention, to the national and the regional ministers, to simply point out that there is the Globalisation Adjustment Fund, and make sure that applications go in, provided that the benchmarks are met, the criteria are met for its mobilisation. And the Commission also will be keeping a careful eye on the situation as it develops, in the light of the very detailed situation set out in the petition when it comes to respect for EU legislation on the acquis. So thank you very much to the petitioner. Thank you. Thanks to the Commission representatives. We now move to another group of petitions, which is 37. And these are petitions, a group of them, which have to do with the location of windmill parks. The petitioners are not with us today, and I'll give the floor, without further ado, to the Commission. Ms. Ockman to respond.
1 moment.
Frau Vorsitzende, vielleicht aus Zeitgründen, wenn ich...
Mr. Yar, perhaps I could give the intro. This will save everyone a lot of time, I think, with the next petitions. Can I perhaps chip in before the Commission? Yeah.
Okay, gut, vielen Dank, weil es geht erstmal um die...
Okay, thank you. We're talking about the petition here in the Erzgebirge, the oil mountain region, and there are some general comments on the petitions here. I think we're looking at windmills above all here and the environmental impact assessment. Again, we've got the issue here that we're trying to look at the gaps in the law and improve this to make sure that the environmental impact assessment does take place in the member state, and then the Commission can act in order to work out whether there have been breaches. And if there is a question as part of the procedure, then according to the law in force, well, at the moment we haven't seen the violations because we haven't had the EIA. We need to make sure we can see an improvement in the situation. We hope that the directive is implemented correctly, because I think it's extremely important that the Commission does act correctly and work out whether there have been infringements. And I'd like to praise the Commission for the first group of petitions. I think there was a wind park there in a highly protected area, and that's not controversial. It's a protected area for birds. And I think there is the Czech and German border, and the Czech Republic wants to erect windmill parks, but we can see that the dialogue there between the Commission and the Member State has led to this finally being looked at. All those authorizations that are affected, those authorizations for the wind park are things that have been called into question by the Czech government. So there has been standstill there. The government has said that they need to assess that again. Therefore, my question to the Commission is, what does the Commission think the state of play is there in the Ore Mountains on the Czech border, and how do they actually assess that withdrawal of the authorization by the Czech government? And thirdly, we are aware of the fact that since September 2013 there's an EU pilot procedure against the Czech government because they haven't applied those EIAs correctly. Those are my three questions. And often the Commission is criticised, but I would like to express my gratitude to the Commission for the excellent dialogue with the Czech authorities, and that's clearly led to that standstill. Thank you.
Grazie, quindi adesso do la parola al rappresentante della...
Thank you. The Commission, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. I'll try to respond to the questions of Mr. Yar, but I probably didn't understand the very first question, but I'll try to explain the state of play. So we're speaking about a wind farm in Moldova, which is on the border with Germany, and as the petition committee was informed, the project as such still undergoes the national procedure, which is aimed at issuing a development consent construction permit, as it is called in the Czech Republic. The integrated environmental impact assessment, which includes the appropriate assessment of the effects of the project on Natura 2000 and cross-border assessment, was concluded already a year ago on 19th April 2013, and the statement of the Czech Ministry of Environment is available both in German and in Czech on the web of the Czech Information Agency. But the procedure has not been concluded, and there is another procedure, which is a derogation procedure from the Czech national law, which we can understand in a wider sense as an equivalent of species protection provision of Article 12 of the Habitats Directive, which is still going on. This procedure was concluded on 26 August 2013, but on the basis of an appeal from the stakeholders. Czech Ministry of Environment stopped the procedure in January 2014 and asked the Regional Environmental Office in Ústí nad Labem to act. And Regional Environmental Office in Ústí nad Labem once again confirmed with the developer that the developer is interested to build the project, and the Regional Environment Office in Ústí nad Labem invited the participants of the proceeding to submit their observations by 30th April 2014. So once again, Czech authorities try to discuss with all the stakeholders and try to resume the case. What the Commission is doing. The Commission received 2 complaints and opened an EU pilot. The pilot, the Czech authorities sent their response on 9th December last year, and we are on one hand studying the response of the Czech authorities, and on the other hand we are following the steps which are taken by the Czech authorities. For the time being, we can't conclude that there has been infringement or there has been a breach of EU legislation, and we can't